Proposition 55, Tax Extension to Fund Education and Healthcare, Initiative Constitutional Amendment. Plain language, continue tax hikes on the wealthy to help cover education and state healthcare costs. What does it do? It extends by 12 years the temporary personal income tax increases enacted in 2012 on earnings over $250,000 for single filers, over $500,000 for joint filers, and over $340,000 for heads of household. It allocates these tax revenues 89% to K-12 schools and 11% to California community colleges. It allocates up to $2 billion per year in certain years for healthcare programs. It prohibits the use of education revenues for administrative costs, but provides local school boards the discretion to decide, in open meetings and subject to annual audit, how the revenues are to be spent. Over half the state budget is spent on education. About a fourth is spent on healthcare and human services programs, of which Medi-Cal is the largest. This year, the state plans to spend about $122 billion from the general fund. The general fund is supported mainly by personal income taxes, which provides 2/3 of the general fund revenue, sales taxes, and corporate income taxes. In 2012, California approved Proposition 30, which raised taxes on high-income taxpayers by 1% to 3% depending on their income through 2018. This tax is projected to bring in $2 billion this year. Prop 30 also raised the sales tax by 1/4 cent from 2013 through 2016. California's constitution requires the state to spend a minimum percentage of its revenue on education each year. This year it comes out to over $50 billion. Local property taxes also contribute to the minimum guarantee. Medi-Cal is California's largest program that provides health services to low-income people and serves over 13 million Californians, about 1/3 of the population. The state will spend about $2.3 billion from the general fund on Medi-Cal. In addition, the program relies heavily on federal funding and receives some support from other state sources. Finally, the California Constitution also requires a certain minimum amount of revenue be used to contribute to its rainy day savings account and a certain minimum amount to pay down debts faster. Long story short, this measure extends the Prop 30 income tax rates on the top 1.5% of California taxpayers for 12 more years and creates a formula to provide additional funds to the Medi-Cal program from 2018 through 2031. The sales tax increases from Prop 30 will be allowed to expire either way. As mentioned earlier, Prop 55 will allocate more money for Medi-Cal in a detailed, convoluted way that doesn't need to be discussed here. The main point is more money for Medi-Cal. Fiscal impact. The exact amount of revenue that would be received from Prop 55 would depend on the incomes of the high-income people being taxed, and their incomes will naturally vary with the stock market, salary changes, and other things that affect a person's income from year to year. Let's look at Figure 3 from the California 2016 Voter Information Guide. As you can see here, Prop 55 would provide between $4 and $9 billion per year depending on the economy. About half of it would go to schools and community colleges, and between $0 to $2 billion to Medi-Cal, and between $60 million to $1.5 billion to budget reserves and debt repayment. Are you thirsty now? I thought it was just me. Let's take a quick break. Hello, beloved viewer. The Darryl Johnson Show needs your help. It takes so much time and energy to do these videos, I don't really have much left over for promotion and the like, but I would be endlessly grateful if you take a moment to post, message, tweet, email, Tumble, link, Instagram, or plus my YouTube page or any of my videos and get the word out. An informed California is a happy California, and I'd appreciate your help on that. Even liking my videos here on YouTube goes a long way. Thank you very much, and now... From Yes on Prop 55. The wealthy must continue to pay their fair share. Prop 55 doesn't raise anyone's taxes. It maintains the current income tax rate on couples earning over $500,000 a year, and they can afford it. Transparency. Prop 55 has strict transparency and accountability requirements to ensure education funds get to the classroom. It goes to the schools, and the legislature can't touch it. There are mandatory audits and authorization for criminal prosecution for misuse of money. It provides local control for funding. It prevents cuts. Prop 55 prevents $4 billion in cuts to schools. It will help address California's looming teacher shortage. It will restore arts and music in schools. It will prevent tuition increases for community college students. It expands healthcare access to children. Healthier children are healthier students. Revenue is guaranteed in the Constitution to go into a special account for schools and children's healthcare that the legislature can't touch. Money will be audited every year. Audit findings are posted at trackprop30.ca.gov so taxpayers can see how their money is being spent. There are strict requirements that funding must go to the classroom, not administration or Sacramento bureaucracy. Prop 55 gives Californians a clear choice. Voting yes protects our schools and children from massive cuts. Voting no costs our schools $4 billion a year. From No on Prop 55. In 2012, voters approved Proposition 30 tax increases because we were promised they'd be temporary and end in 2017. Now special interests want to break that promise and extend these tax hikes 12 more years. That's not temporary. Governor Brown promised they would be temporary. We don't need higher taxes. California has a balanced budget. We've reduced debt, increased school spending, put billions into California's rainy day fund, and still have $2.7 billion in surplus funds. Education spending has soared by $24.6 billion since 2012. That's a 52% increase. Medical spending has increased by $2.9 billion, a 13% increase. Prop 55 targets small businesses who often pay taxes on their personal tax return. Prop 55 will kill jobs, close businesses, and damage the economy. It's a fair bet that Prop 55 money will be spent to pay pension benefits and other state debt rather than making it to the classroom. Check for yourself. California has a $2.7 billion surplus and over $9.4 billion in budget reserves. New and higher taxes aren't needed. California should keep its word. Temporary means temporary. So in the supporting argument for this proposition, we come across the typical phrases and justifications that I simply hate, such as, the wealthy needs to pay their fair share. And as you become acclimated with politics, you will soon learn that fair share is always whatever is more than they're already paying. The term really has no meaning. Then there was the fact that it really was billed as a temporary tax to get through hard times. And of course, now we learn that by temporary, they meant 16 years. And in 16 years, I'm sure there will need to be more fair share being paid. What's likely to happen is what happened in Prop 61. After years of getting used to a tax raise, they'll say, well, this has been working out so great, let's make it permanent. And the funny thing is, and by funny I mean nauseating, that they have the audacity to continue these tax hikes as if we have Alzheimer's. Those of you who were paying attention in 2012 remember they begged and pleaded for this new tax raise because our children needed it so badly. And then as soon as voters approved Prop 30, do you know what they did? They used it to put into teacher pension funds and pay teachers for furlough days they had taken. But surprise! Now we need to extend the temporary Prop 30 tax increases for our children again. Now, we discussed this in 2012 when we went through Prop 30 as well as various other propositions along the way, and it's becoming apparent that I'm just going to have to make a permanent video so that I don't have to keep saying this over and over again every time the school board comes back to explain how the school system is on the brink of annihilation unless we raise taxes. Because you can be sure that this will never end. So what I'm going to do is create a special video dedicated to the school board for every time they come back with a new tax. And in 2018, when they inevitably come up with something new, I'll explain the proposition, as I always do. And then at the end of the summary, I'll invite you to lean in. And then I'll click the play button. And this right here, this is what you will hear every time a new school tax comes up. It would be so easy if it really was as simple as raising taxes one more time. But unfortunately for California, money is not the answer. Should we believe that we are always one tax away from solving California's problems? Some districts in California spend as much as $25,000 per student each year. California is the 8th largest economy in the world, and more than 50% of all California's revenue is earmarked for education. That means that more than 50% of the 8th largest economy in the world is spent on our education system. The California Constitution stipulates that anytime the general fund receives any new tax revenues, 54% of that must go to education right off the top. But that's still not enough. We just need more money. That will solve our problems. 50% of the revenue of the 8th largest economy in the world just isn't enough. Japan spends 3.3% of their gross domestic product on education. South Korea spends 16%. Canada spends less than 5%. But somehow we are able to do that magic trick where we spend 3 times as much and perform more than 3 times as poorly. That takes skill. The truth is, the $50 billion we spend on education each year is going somewhere. And the fact that California students repeatedly embarrass themselves on the world stage is an education problem, not a money problem. It's a family problem, not a money problem. It's a community, culture problem, not a money problem. Yet they would have us believe that one more tax will fix our problems. But can you imagine the day when the Education Board calls a press conference to announce that they finally have enough money? No more is needed. Everybody is paying their fair share, and we're all good now. This will never happen. Despite spending far more on education than almost anyone in the country or world, the situation never improves. Money is no substitute for engaged parents, engaged students, and engaged teachers. But the truth is, this really isn't about the students. It's about California struggling to fund public pension funds. It's about poorly bargained contracts, and it's about mismanagement and waste. It's a famous story by now. LA County told its residents that they really needed to pass a $50 million construction bond. It was really important. Then they took the money and bought iPads for everybody in the Los Angeles School District. I don't have time to go through it all, but if you're curious, you can just Google it. Just Google, I don't remember. Oh yeah, LA Unified School District's $1.3 billion iPad fiasco, and see how it ended in at least 2 lawsuits and an FBI investigation. But maybe if we raise taxes, we can fix that too. Honestly, I have a huge heart for education. I love teachers, and I've met many over the years. I believe in the school system, and I want the very best for students and teachers, but there's a misconception that more money equals more success. There are many low-income charter schools overperforming with the aid of engaged parents and engaged teachers. Even within the same school, with the same budget, you can see for yourself some students thriving and succeeding, and others failing. What's happening in the home is often more important than what's happening at school. It's easy and convenient to blame educational failures on budget strains, but in the case of the 8th largest economy in the world that spends half of its wealth on education, a lack of money is not the problem. And regardless of how much more money you vote to dump into this problem, more will always be needed next election. If you vote yes on Prop 55, you are voting to extend the tax increases on top income earners in California. If you vote no, you are allowing them to expire. The Darryl Johnson Show says no on Prop 55.